Hey, Happy New Year, everyone. Dave here, and I want to let you in on a little secret. All of our programs, after they get recorded, they go to my wife, and my wife, throughout the week, puts together all sorts of little video clips from the larger program. And when you're following us on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube, whatever the case might be, when you see those clips, those are the ones that she put together. And today, I have put together almost an entire hour of the clips that she has chosen, the ones that she wanted to turn into clips to share with you guys. So these are my wife's greatest hits. That's what we're sharing today for the program. It's a lot of fun because it's boom, 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 boom. We get to as many questions as we can. There's no filler. There's no in-between time. It just goes from question to story to question to question to story. All sorts of really great insight coming at you at a pace that we don't do any other time. So I hope you enjoy today's program. Thank you so much for a wonderful 2025. I'm looking forward to 2026. I know Steve is too. Hope you enjoy today's program and be on the lookout. We got things coming your way that we're excited to share. We'll talk to you about those later. God bless everyone. Advice on setting up a mule for the first time. Is a round pen a must to train a mule? And what would you care for a mule for the first time equine owner? I thought a big 2-acre pasture would do. So this is a great question, Frank. I'm really grateful that you're here asking this for two reasons. Number one, it shows that you want to do what's right, and I think that that should be applauded. So a little bit of encouragement as you're starting out. Number two, this clip right here is going to be a heavily watched clip because there's a lot of folks in your position, and Steve is going to give you some insight on what you want to do here with this new mule that you've got, especially being a first-time equine owner.
Okay, so number one, equine, when it comes down to their diet, is extremely, extremely important that we feed them according to the type of work that we're doing. Now, when you put them out in a pasture, they're out in a pasture, they eat, they got 2 acres of feed. A lot of times that they overgraze and they end up getting grass founder, or they eat some of the wrong things and end up getting grass founder. They don't need to be out in a two acre pasture. I have each one of my mules that I'm training in a 20 by 20 stall. That's the way they are. My wife's little mule, 28 years old, she spent 26 years in a 20 by 20 stall. That's all they need, okay? You just maintain them, watch their water, watch their feed, and you can maintain them and watch them a whole lot easier. Now, when you feed them according to your training. Now, if you know you're going to be training pretty consistently, then you're going to have to increase your feed. And you're going to have to increase your grain as well. So you want to feed a whole oat, and that whole oat is going to give them the energy to get through the time frame that you're training. I don't like to just put a bunch of feed in front of an animal and just let them free graze. They don't need it. I actually feed once a day, and that's it. I give them all they need that night, and then the next morning they're at the gate ready to go to work, and that's what I want to see.
Awesome. Thank you for the question.
Well, I was thinking about that right now as you were just saying. Several years ago, before I was born again and going to church and stuff, there was a pastor that lived up the street from me. And his name was Steve Edwards too. And he wanted me to train a mule. And it's kind of funny, when people would come by the house, they said on my mailbox, Steve Edwards. So they thought I was Pastor Edwards, you see. And they'd bring pies and cakes and stuff. But anyway, going on to the story. And of course, they'd say, this is for Steve Edwards. I said, oh, okay, I'll take it. Yeah. Anyway, another story. So he told me, he said, Steve, why don't you train my mule? But I don't want you saying any bad words around this mule. I want all good words. And I said, all right, what do you want? He said, praise the Lord for stopping. Amen for going. So I thought, well, praise the Lord stopping. Amen for going. I'm going to do that. So I trained on this mule, and I tried not to cuss too much because I used to have a pretty bad mouth. But anyway, so the pastor come over and he said, Steve, let me see you do this mule. So I said, amen. And the mule stopped. I said, praise the Lord. And the mule went on. So those are cues, you see. Cues. We were just talking about clicker training and cues. Well, this is cues. Now, he said, well, I'm going to go to the Grand Canyon and I'm going to go ride my mule. So I'm glad you got him all trained up and no bad words. All right. So he's riding on to Grand Canyon, and as per usual, there's these little arf dogs that the eagles up there love, and that's another story. All of a sudden, this little arf dog come out of the bushes, and all of a sudden, that mule took off, and he's heading toward the canyon. And next thing you know, he's coming right to the edge of the canyon. He goes, amen, and the mule stopped. He goes, praise the Lord. You got it? Did you get it?
Oh, goodness
I hope
gracious.
everybody got that with the amen, praise the Lord. Yes, sir.
Steve Edwards, you are an American treasure. Johnson says, Sherman says, I rode my mule the other day and left the come-along rope on her, and she did everything right. I didn't have to touch the rope. She knew it was on her. The rope halter doesn't get the respect like the come-along rope. Yeah, this is something, Steve, that I noticed. So when we were working together back in the early, mid-2010s, late 2010s, we talked a lot about the rope halter and some about the come-along rope. And then over the course of time into the next decade, we kind of talked more about the come-along rope, a little bit less about the rope halter, but the rope halter still got a lot of play. Well, over the last 5 years, we've spoken the majority of our training time about the come-along rope versus the rope halter, not saying there's no purpose for the rope halter, but saying there are specific purposes for the rope halter versus the come-along rope being your all-around best communication tool. And I just want to say, this is that has been me watching you continue to evolve over the course of the last 15 years, continuing to learn, not saying, I learned this in 1999 and I've been doing it this way ever since, but you've really evolved in that. Can you tell me a little bit about why you made that change, what it was that kind of came to your attention that it's I really need to lean more heavily into the come-along rope versus the rope halter?
Well, in all actuality, I use that come-along hitch more than anything else, in the prior, in the past. But it's also called a war bridle. And as you know, you've had a few people say, oh, you're being harsh. So it's almost kind of like, Dave, I've been kind of slowly bringing it into place where people can see it happening and see it going, okay? I'm seeing a whole different mule rider today than what I did before. The mule rider before was a horse rider that had been focusing on horses. The mule rider that we've been able to touch, and that's thanks to your technology doing it that way, is we now have a lot of new mule riders that we are touching. Okay, so I want them to see, really, it's kind of like my saddles. When I first sold my saddles, they looked like everybody else's saddle. They had leather billets on them and this sort of thing, because I didn't want to make changes real quick. And everybody going, wow, I don't like this. I'd rather, go back to yada yada. Anyway, so it's just been kind of changing. So what I actually am doing now is what I actually done 25, 30 years ago, more of, but I was slowly trying to go into the equine world with some of what they knew, but added some more of some other stuff, like this is what you really need to be doing. Does that make sense to you, Dave?
Yeah, that does. That does make sense, and I appreciate that. And just goes to show, here I am spending all this time with you. You say these things, and just kind of goes over my head. That's why we do this program, because we can say the same thing over and over and over. We can transition people into a way of doing things over time, and you're just not in a point where you're hearing it. And it's not that you're dumb. It's not that you're dense. It's not that you're unable to get it. It's your mind isn't in that place. Your mind isn't thinking about those things right now. And then all of a sudden, when these things become aware to you and you're looking for a particular result, you start asking the questions and you realize, oh, okay, that's what he was talking about all that time. That makes a lot of sense. This came in from Dave O'Brien. Says, I listened to a podcast the other day from someone other than Steve, and the guest speaker recommended a custom saddle maker for mules. Out of curiosity, I went to the custom saddle site and just shook my head. Their advertising picture, in that picture, they had the saddle sitting too far forward. The saddle was not split in the back, and they only had a front cinch. I felt bad for their customers, for their mules. That's not the first time we've heard that. Matter of fact, we've seen Steve's saddles not split in the back, and that's because some folks will buy it and they'll decide to make modifications to it, and all of a sudden it changes the design. Steve, in particular, because we have seen that multiple times, when folks see that split in the back, obviously there's some folks that think it needs to be sewn up together. What's the reason for that, and why is that wind up being a bad deal for the mule?
Well, there's two reasons for it. Okay, number one, that if you see, there's a lot of mules that when their hip comes over and drops down, there are three vertebrae that kind of stick up. And your saddles that are sewed across the back and that are solid across the back, they tend to rub a hole into those backbones. And what that does, it creates a fistula, and it gets really swelled and big, and they end up with a big edema on there. And it's the reason is because they sew up the back end. On a mule, since they're very lateral when they're walking, they move their hips very unique, okay? And since they do, and since they're very lateral when they're walking, that those hips will burn. It's called burning. You'll see the hair literally wear right off of them. It's not the saddle's fault. In some ways, it's the way the mule walks. So what I did is I took my saddle and I designed it in such a way so it's open in the back, and it also fits the slant of the back. I've had people send me pictures saying it's not sitting flat. And I said, yeah, that's right. It's good. That's what you want. You don't want it laying flat on the mule's back because they're very lateral when they're walking, very smooth when they're walking, therefore, and it makes for a very nice ride. But then you're not soring your mule, okay? And then if you only have a front cinch, shame on you. Everybody says, hey, I got a bit like that in my toolbox. I'll just use that one. Okay, Dave, let's show them the difference between my bit and how it port sets compared to the horse bit. Okay, notice, folks, the top bit is up off of the table. Do you see that? The bottom bit is down on the table. The reason I have it up laying like that is so that it sets back in the pallet a little bit more. It gives me a little bit more communication, and it's not continually banging on the animal's palate. Okay? Now you got to remember, when these bits are being used, the bars of the mouth, that's the part right here. Here's the incisors right here. Okay? The bar of the mouth is right here. This bit, okay, the double twisted wire snaffle bit is like the violin going across a bow. And everybody says, "Oh, Steve, it's a 4.5-inch mouth. And you sent me a 5-inch bit." Good. You figure I sent you a 5-inch bit that gives you a 1/2 inch off each corner. You do not want it to be set and solid against the animal's mouth. And now some of them's got bigger lips, and there's no bit in the world going to fit them good. Okay. But here's what you want. You do not want it to be touching the corners of the mouth. This is not a horse. This is a donkey. This is a mule. And when these parts of the bit are laying against the mouth hard, you're going to create strawberry patches. Now, sometimes you'll create a strawberry patch simply because the mule and donkey is pressuring on the bit, and that's caused the problem. But when you have an incorrect bit and they're too tight on the sides, you're going to create problems.
Somebody picked up one of your saddles used, and they noticed that underneath the fender, there was not one, but there was 2 D-rings. There you go, right there. Is that the cowboy saddle, Steve?
That's the cowboy saddle.
And then you can see right here, underneath the fender, there are 2 D-rings here. And so Tim, who messaged in, he said he was like, I wanted to know what I'm meant to do. Which of the rings am I supposed to use?
Okay. Now, this saddle is almost 25 years old. Now, I can tell by the conchos on the saddle. But originally, I designed my saddles with a 7/8 3/4 rigging plate. And unfortunately, people started using it incorrectly. And so I finally changed here several years ago and went to a one rigging plate because 7/8 is not correct completely, and neither is 3/4 completely, but kind of right in between there works. But use the front one. That's 7/8 rig plate right there. I think it is. Use the front D ring, but remember, your back cinch is the tightest. That's what's important, not the front cinch. So when you do that front cinch, you want to have it so you can just barely put your hand between the animal's cinch and his belly. But I no longer do them that way. Matter of fact, I've even taken my D ring and I turned it just a little bit.
We've had our female donkey Maggie for about 1.5 years now. She's 7. When we first rescued her, she was skittish, but would still let us get in pets and the occasional hug. Where I think we went wrong was the first farrier visit. The halter wasn't really the issue, but she very much resisted being held in place by the lead and got pretty upset and insistent. We let it go because her hooves were fine. Since then, she is very curious and not ever aggressive. She will take treats from our hands, but she will not let us touch her. She backs away and leaves if we push at all. Other than being gentle around her, giving her treats, and being patient, what do we do? How do I gain her trust? She needs her hooves trimmed, but she won't let us handle her. What's the best way to work with her? So, Steve, can I answer and see?
Yeah,
this
perfect.
is what I would do, and I'm curious what you would have me do differently. First off, get her in a 10x20 stall so that immediately you become the thing that she is dependent upon. She's dependent upon you for water, for food, for attention, for whatever. Once you do that, then you start ground foundation training and you get yourself the come along rope. And if you have any problems getting that come along rope on her, you start to make her uncomfortable. And we've got some videos of showing Steve making the animal uncomfortable. You learn to read the body language. You learn to read the signs of when it's okay to approach and visiting hours are on and visiting hours are off. And you get up to the point where you can get that come along rope on her and begin communicating to the nose. There's all sorts of different exercises you can do that, but start to establish a foundation. That's going to get you halter trained to the point where now when you have the farrier come out or you have to do vet work or you want to do training, she's going to respect the halter and she's going to respect you as the herd leader. So it's not so much about, creating a relationship where it's like you're petting them and like, oh yes, they love you. And it's not a dog. It's an equine. It's livestock. And so you want to get them on that come along rope as soon as possible to start communicating to the nose because they care more about their nose than anything else, and get them to the point where when they're starting to do any type of work, you're timing and they do anything you don't want them to do, bump. That way they know, okay, if I stay straight, my nose ain't going to be sore. I guess I just have to let them work on my feet. That's what I would do. Steve, what would you have me adjust there?
Perfect. I think you did it just right.
Dave O'Brien says, I can attest to keeping the mules separate and in a small enclosure. If I let them out to pasture, they get pushy like I'm a herd buddy. If they are kept in their pen, they understand I'm the herd leader. It definitely makes a difference. And yet, you might have said this, Steve, while I was interacting in the comments and looking for any other additional questions. But one of the things is when they're out in the herd, they don't need you. They're with their buddies. They have all the feed they need. They can go. They can do what they want. Why would they want to come to you? Why would they want to do what you're asking them to do? Especially if they have a disposition that is not willing. They wouldn't want to. It doesn't make sense. You keep them in a 10x20, and you may think, oh, they need to be out there with their buddies. Again, that goes back to something we talked at the beginning. Maybe there's a mare out there and they want to be with them because they're wanting leadership. It's not because there's a I'm lonely, I'm lonely. They're looking for that leadership. So that's why it's so important you provide them with that leadership. And all of a sudden, they start looking to you to clean their stalls. They start looking to you to provide their food. They start looking to you to provide water and to provide leadership. And so when you come into the stall, you teach them to do everything on your timing, not their timing. And that's where the come along rope comes in and that ground foundation training. And you get them to pay attention right off the bat. Because if they're out there, they're ignoring you. And every second they're ignoring you, they're learning to ignore you. And it's reinforcing it. But you come into that stall, you do ground foundation training, and you teach them that you're the herd leader. It changes the entire relationship. When your mule tries to kick you, what should your response be? When they're going to kicking after you, what should your response be?
I tell you what, there's nothing that irritates me more than a mule that'll try to kick at me or bite me. You know what, Dave? That's very intentional. They are wanting to hurt you, all right? They are trying to tell you, get out of my space. And when you have one that wants to bite you or one that wants to kick at you, then you're going to come unglued. And I can tell you that I especially have a way that I do this. I'll put the come along hitch on him, and then I'll take him and take a long buggy whip, and I'll intentionally go down by their rear leg with that buggy whip, and I've got my come along rope ready before when they're thinking about kicking you. All right. And how do you do that? When they throw an ear toward it, okay, or when they throw an eye toward it, or that whip, if they even do that just the slightest, you hit them with the come along rope. The come along rope pretty much is your communicator. I don't mind that type of thing that you're doing, or I want you to quit doing it. And that come along rope, when you bump their nose, tells them you are not happy with their idea of kicking at you.
I've said this for folks who have been watching any number of years. You probably heard me say it. Steve called me up, and it was about 10 years ago. He says, hey, I need to film a video. Came out, got everything set up, and he gets this barbaric nutcracker looking thing coming out. It looks like it's meant to crack walnuts. And I was like, there's no way he's going to use this on the animal. And he grabs the nose, and he puts it between this contraption and starts squeezing. And I thought, okay, there must be something going on here that necessitates this. And instead of seeing the animal just get crazy and lit up with, bracing into the pain, whatever, the animal just relaxed. And all of a sudden, Steve was able to apply medication to the eye. The eye was not in good shape. And the animal was just totally relaxed and willing and calm. And it was wild. And that was actually a big life learning lesson for me of, you hear the old adage, you can't judge a book by its cover. You don't have the education for something, you're going to start making assumptions about it. And really, when you do that, you just sell yourself short because, number one, you don't get the benefit on the thing that you're assuming over. And number two, if what you assumed was correct in the first place, you don't understand why it was correct, which means you can't do anything different. So that was a big learning moment for me. And it's crazy because when we're doing a clinic, Steve, you can see in people's eyes, they think the exact same thing I do. And then they experience the exact same thing I did, and they're like, okay, well, I kind of got to get me one of those because I've never seen a more willing mule. MJ says, I'm a writer, and I'm asking for the story that I'm writing on. I thought this was pretty cool. Hypothetically, when a single donkey happened to run into a strange herd, how would they react? Like both of them. How would the new donkey react to the herd, and how would the herd react to the new donkey? Would it be realistic for any of them to scream? Would they be hostile at first? Would they be aggressive? Would they be curious? I guess it could depend on several factors. Any help would be appreciated.
Okay, so for one thing, the new donkey wouldn't get really already in the herd because the herd leader would have already gotten after it. They do it right off the bat. When a new donkey is coming into the herd leader pins her ears, which basically is saying, don't come no closer. If the donkey keeps on coming, she pins her ears, she swishes her tail, but the donkey keeps on coming. Now she asked her and she told her, now she spins and kicks, and sometimes spins and bites. And she demanded. So ask, tell, demand. That's what the herd leader does. Now, that's most likely what would happen. Now, the downside, if that new donkey was coming in there, he's got a chance of really getting himself injured if he doesn't come in asking for permission to come in, which is what they will do. They will drop their head, lick their lips, and ask for permission to come into the herd. You're rarely going to see an equine, dumb enough to just bust into a herd, because usually they can get themselves hurt.
I had a question. I purchased a 20-year-old retired trail mule. She is in great shape, and I would like to keep it that way. On one of your videos, you said they are not eating anything, or they were to eat nothing but out hay. Well, that's not really available in my area. What else is a good alternative I can use? I've had her on alfalfa for a few months because she is housed with horses, but they usually are all on grass in the summer. So I'm not sure what video she's talking about, Steve. But I mean, really, we don't. You want a good hay. We like to buy the hay if we can, not the first cut, but then we buy all that we need for that season if possible, because all hay is different. And then we use the pellet and feed according to use. And then very rarely will we use the alfalfa just because it's so hot. You'll use a rolled oat. You'll feed that, as a supplement, I think is what you've said in the past.
Well, no, your rolled oat, you really don't want to feed a rolled oat, because what that is a fattening.
Okay.
Grain.
Whole oats.
Yeah, whole oats.
Whole oats. That's what it was. I got it mixed up.
Yeah.
So I'm going to send her the feed video, but is there anything else you want to say specifically to this?
Well, I always say if you're going to feed hay, test it so that you know what's in the hay. It's really important. Okay, you cannot believe what happens when you have your hay tested. You wouldn't believe the amount of rat parts in there, snake parts, and it creates a colic situation. Okay, so you want to have your hay tested, folks. Do this yourself. Enjoy the time. You're going to make mistakes. It's all right. How do you think I was able to spend all this time? You think I did everything just right? No, I didn't. I made mistakes, and I learned by the mistakes, and I got better. And I make mistakes, and I learn by that mistake, and I get better. And some of this has to do with you, all right? Now it's your turn. What we tend to do, as soon as we come in from a ride, we tend to immediately pull the saddle off. We tend to immediately take him to a corral. And a lot of times we'll go ahead and feed him right there. So guess what? Now the mule's saying, your timing's not good. That timing, hey, I'm supposed to be in my corral now. I'm going to pause. I'm going to, because why? Because that's what you did. When you get done from a ride, everybody, listen to this. This is important. You get done from a ride, you leave that mule saddled up. Half an hour, minimum. Okay? Now, there'll be a case or two where it might be a little bit less, but there's going to be a whole lot more. Now, then when he's quiet, he's paying attention, I'll pull the saddle off. I'll brush him down a little bit, and then I will leave him there another 15 minutes to a half an hour. Okay? That way I don't teach him, we're going to do this at so-and-so time, so many minutes, we're going to do that. Same thing with feeding time. You feed at the same time every day, pretty soon the mule's going to start pawing and say, hey, it's 5 o'clock. You're saying, no, I'm going to go riding. No, 5 o'clock, dinner time, clean my corrals, let's go. That's what they do, folks, okay? So it's not just the mule's fault. Do you understand this? Hear what she said, Dave? She said 8 months later it started becoming a problem. Guess who taught it? Guess who taught it? You did. These mules are fine, folks, until we teach them the bad habits, and we do it inadvertently. We don't think about it. Because how many of you, I'm going to see a show of hands down here, everybody's watching, how many of you, as soon as you come up, you immediately pull the saddle off bridle and throw them in the corral?
She says, I came across a post online of somebody talking about how they were looking for a mule and they had their heart set on a mule. What are some reasons folks would prefer to ride a mule over riding a horse? And how common is it for folks to choose a mule over a horse? Are there other things that you can do with them other than riding and carting?
Well, riding, driving, packing, when it comes to competitions, you can go into open classes for Western pleasure, and then other classes too. You can go into open classes to where it's open to any breed, and you can do that. But there's people. One of the biggest problems with most mule owners and people who are purchasing them is they don't spend enough time to figure out, to know about the mule, so when the mule has some problems, how do we deal with them? So there's lots and lots of good reasons why I would prefer a mule over a horse, just in general, just their natural ability to take care of themselves. But I got a lot of information on there, and you can sure read it. All my videos, we got lots of articles and this sort of thing that'll help you out.
She says, would it ever be the case where a donkey or mule would associate the halter or the come along rope with a sore nose and then try to have it avoid having it put on?
Well, even if it's not a sore nose, if it's just they get to where your timing isn't quite right, and they'll find a way to get around you because they don't want to do it. It's not just the nose that's going to be sore. The pole is going to be sore, and underneath the chin is going to be sore. But there again, it's your timing. I've had a lot of people tell me that the mule refused to do it after a while. Well, there again, you got to go back to your timing. How was your timing for putting that come along hitch on? So, me personally, no, I haven't had the problem at all.
So help me understand that. If they begin to associate, if they do think, oh, here comes that nasty thing again, and they see it and they try to, keep away from it, how would my timing, would it just be making them uncomfortable then at that point? And so
Yeah,
they're walking away and you're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then you're making them, and you're jostling around, you're making them watch you. And then when they stand still, you're still. And if they start moving around, then you start moving up, squaring up with them again. Is that
yep,
what you would do until they get calm and then approach them from the shoulder?
that's right. You got to remember, I've seen them do the same thing with a bit. I've seen them do the same thing with a saddle. Avoid the saddle, avoid the bit, avoid even a halter. Okay, they'll get to where they can do that. But again, it's a cue. What's the cue? The foundation. Okay, is drop their head, tip their nose to the left. They just like that mule that we did in a clinic a couple years ago. That buckskin mule. I was showing people how the mule drops his head, tips his nose to the left. That's the cue. And if he doesn't do that, I'm going to make him uncomfortable. So that's not just it wouldn't be just the come along hitch. It could be the bit. It could be the bridle. It could be the halter. Anything. Because you got to remember, that's not a norm for them. It's not part of their life.
If you've recently had your animal's teeth floated, this one's for two. So 850 would be 425 each. Would y'all share, if you're comfortable, what you most recently paid? Let's get an idea of maybe what a going rate would be that we can share with David. And then, Steve, is there any instance where for one animal, a normal vet visit could cost $425, $400, $350. Is there any other things that would be considered maybe routine that could maybe done every 5 years or something, but is there any way that maybe they just did all these things at one time and that's why it was, and you shouldn't expect that every time?
Right. Well, if it's a vet check, I'm going to
Okay.
spend $500. A vet check, because then they go over everything. But just to float teeth, that if that's astronomical. I have never heard anything like that. I mean, I would be looking around for somebody else that can do it. And remember, it doesn't have to be a vet. There's a lot of dental technicians that can do it. Okay, pretty simple. I wished you were here. I could show you how to do it. You just reach in, get the tongue, hold on to it, and a mule, once you get their tongue out and hold on to it, you take them rasp it down, you're done. If it takes me over 20 minutes to do one, I'd be having problems with it, because it's an easy job. Plus that you can use a twitch on them.
Yeah.
You can use a twitch and you can float the teeth.
125, we've got 80, 135, 125, 75. One person says, I pay about 400 per float, but he listens to their heart and stomach, so a general wellness observation. So would that be more of like a vet check sort of thing?
Yeah, but a vet check's a lot more detailed, where you're going to
Okay.
be doing X-rays on the feet and checking the feet and this sort of thing. But yeah, to do another general exam, and I mean, it's nothing to listening to the heart and gut sound. You can do that with your ear up against them, okay? But still, that's a lot of money to be paying for that. And as you can see, the other prices by other people there, it's a lot more reasonable.
We've had our female donkey Maggie for about 1.5 years now. She's 7. When we first rescued her, she was skittish, but would still let us get in pets and the occasional hug. Where I think we went wrong was the first farrier visit. The halter wasn't really the issue, but she very much resisted being held in place by the lead and got pretty upset and insistent. We let it go because her hooves were fine. Since then, she is very curious and not ever aggressive. She will take treats from our hands, but she will not let us touch her. She backs away and leaves if we push at all. Other than being gentle around her, giving her treats, and being patient, what do we do? How do I gain her trust? She needs her hooves trimmed, but she won't let us handle her. What's the best way to work with her? So, Steve,
Okay.
can I answer and see?
Yeah,
Like,
perfect.
this is what I would do, and I'm curious what you would have me do differently. First off, get her in a 10 by 20 stall so that immediately you become the thing that she is dependent upon. She's dependent upon you for water, for food, for attention, for whatever. Once you do that, then you start ground foundation training and you get yourself the come along rope. And if you have any problems getting that come along rope on her, you start to make her uncomfortable. And we've got some videos of showing Steve making the animal uncomfortable. You learn to read the body language. You learn to read the signs of when it's okay to approach, and visiting hours are on and visiting hours are off. And you get up to the point where you can get that come along rope on her and begin communicating to the nose. There's all sorts of different exercises you can do that, but start to establish a foundation. That's going to get you halter trained to the point where now, when you have the farrier come out, or you have to do vet work, or you want to do training, she's going to respect the halter and she's going to respect you as the herd leader. So it's not so much about, creating a relationship where it's like you're petting them and like, oh yes, they love you. And it's not a dog. It's an equine. It's livestock. And so you want to get them on that come along rope as soon as possible to start communicating to the nose, because they care more about their nose than anything else, and get them to the point where when they're starting to do any type of work, you're timing and they do anything you don't want them to do, bump. That way they know, okay, if I stay straight, my nose ain't going to be sore. I guess I just have to let them work on my feet. That's what I would do. Steve, what would you have me adjust there?
Perfect. I think you did it just right.
Andy sent in a question saying, Steve, what electrolytes are you using? We usually have a 10-hour drive, then a 6 to 8 hour ride the next morning. We water our mules in the river about 45 minutes into our ride. What electrolytes are you using?
Any of the electrolytes out there are good. So I'm not using any particular brand name. I've pretty much used maybe all of them to be honest with you. But just I usually, to be honest, I usually get the cheapest one, the least expensive, and give it to them. Now, you can also want to think about that if you do a lot of traveling, doing a lot of trail riding or a lot of shows, you may want to put it in your water as well and have them be prepared that way. Otherwise, a paste shot right in the mouth here, give them a 10 cc's, and when they come out of that trailer, they'll be looking for water.
My new mule, doesn't want to keep feet up for cleaning. What do I do? So good for you for wanting to keep those feet clean, but let's see if we can get her on board. Steve, what should Sharon do?
Okay, so what we're going to do is we've got a button that we're going to push on the shoulder, and that's called the scapula, and there's one on the hip called the hip bone. And Dave is going to pull up a little video here, I'm sure, to show you where it is. But anyway, this is what you're going to do. You're going to take your left hand and rub on the scapula. You'll feel it. You'll lay your hand flat, and it'll come across the scapula. All of a sudden, you'll feel the middle finger right there, that middle finger right there. You'll feel it, touch it, and then you'll know that's the button. And then you take a quirt that's about 3 or 4 foot long in your right hand, and you just kind of lightly tap it. Lightly tap it, very lightly. And so that the mule will pick it up and learn to stand on 3 feet. And pretty soon he'll get to where you touch it, he'll pick up the foot, no problem at all.
Leslie sent this in. I'm going to show this video, and I'm going to read just a really cool letter that came through. I thought it'd be fun to share. But this one came from Leslie. Says, oh, that's me. I want to get you. There you go, Steve. Back in 1979, I officially outgrew my horse, showing gang, and said goodbye to a lively chapter filled with horse shows, globetrotting, and ribbon chasing. But hold the phone! During my grand finale show, I spotted my very first mule and made a pact with myself. Once I hit retirement, I'd be all about mules. Fast forward to 2022. Welcome to my mule adventure. I took a bold step and bought 3 mules online, and lo and behold, the sellers were as truthful as a mule could be. These creatures acted just like I imagined, calmish, but maybe more whoa than go. I forked out $3,800 for one and $5,000 for the others. Now you'd think it'd be all sunshine and rainbows, right? Wrong. I found myself in a fit of confusion like a taco at a salad bar. My saddles were like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, and my bits, let's just say they were too biting for my taste. Lost again, I scoured YouTube and stumbled upon your channel. It was like a light bulb moment. Ding! And then came your trail light saddle, feather light with the kind of fenders that don't feel like bricks on my legs. I wasted no time placing an order. When you reached out about the saddle, Steve, I was blown away by your customer service. It's like golden sparkles. You predicted my challenges even before I knew they existed, and your clever fixes saved my day. Now, as I gaze into 2024, I'm living the dream I've harbored since I was 19, owning mules and tackling trails. I'm not existing, I'm thriving. Mules are a whole different ballgame. It turns out all my dressage training didn't click with these 4-legged wonders, especially when I discovered through your guidance that mules mostly respond to the nose. Without your wisdom and gear, my trail rides would have been like commandeering a rickety old jalopy on a bumpy road. Instead, now it feels like cruising in my slick-cylinder manual Jeep Wrangler. I've even put together a slideshow because it's crucial for you and Dave to see just how much your work has meant to me. I know those Tuesday night talks take serious effort, and I wanted to express my gratitude with some delightful photos and music celebrating your hard work, making my retirement chapter full of joy. Thank you endlessly, Steve and Dave. What pack saddle is better, the Decker or the Sawbuck?
I reminds me of being back at Bishop. You know, the first years we went there in '87, I think it was, something like that. And we went there and we had our Sawbuck saddles, and all the packers were sitting around at Bishop Mule Days, and we told them we was packing Sawbucks, and they says you can't compete with us because The only saddle that we compete with is a Decker, which is a single cinch with round hooks on it, rather than a sawbuck crossed. Okay, and so we said, all right, this is what's going to happen. You use your Deckers, we use our sawbuck, and whoever wins, we just say that's the best saddle. Well, unfortunately, we lost. We lost big time because what we didn't do, what we didn't have, we had really good mules at the pack station. We chose some of the better ones out of there, and they were good mules. But what we didn't have to train with is 10,000 people. That's why I tell you can't desensitize. So it had to be our mules, which were solid mules. Going up and down that canyon just wasn't going to put up with all of them people, and they hadn't had much come along work and this sort of thing. They were just working mules. So anyway, when I had my own pack station, and I used my mules with a come along hitch, we changed things tremendously.
Dave O'Brien says, I can attest to keeping the mules separate and in a small enclosure. If I let them out to pasture, they get pushy like I'm a herd buddy. If they are kept in their pen, they understand I'm the herd leader. It definitely makes a difference. And yet, you might have said this, Steve, while I was interacting in the comments and looking for any other additional questions. But one of the things is when they're out in the herd, they don't need you. They're with their buddies. They have all the feed they need. They can go. They can do what they want. Why would they want to come to you? Why would they want to do what you're asking them to do? Especially if they have a disposition that is not willing. They wouldn't want to. It doesn't make sense. You keep them in a 10 by 20, and you may think, oh, they need to be out there with their buddies. Again, that goes back to something we talked at the beginning. Maybe there's a mare out there and they want to be with them because they're wanting leadership. It's not because there's I'm lonely. They're looking for that leadership. So that's why it's so important you provide them with that leadership. And all of a sudden, they start looking to you to clean their stalls. They start looking to you to provide their food. They start looking to you to provide water and to provide leadership. And so when you come into the stall, you teach them to do everything on your timing, not their timing. And that's where the come along rope comes in and that ground foundation training. And you get them to pay attention right off the bat. Because if they're out there, they're ignoring you. And every second they're ignoring you, they're learning to ignore you. And it's reinforcing it. But you come into that stall, you do ground foundation training, and you teach them that you're the herd leader. It changes the entire relationship. What are some of the sizing things that people become concerned with when purchasing a saddle? Now, in our store, we sell based upon seat size, but that is the only size metric that we take. But I'm aware that there are some other sizing considerations that folks will ask about. Can you share what might those be and why on your saddles it's not really a concern?
Okay, so sizing wise, you don't need to tell me the sizes of your mule. You don't need to give me measurements of your donkey. You don't need to give me any of that stuff because I already know that my tree from my saddle is going to be correct. I already know that the design of my saddle is going to be correct. So what kind of sizes do I need to have? Cinch sizes. And on my website, I teach you how to measure for cinches. Now, it's not exact rocket scientist. You don't have to have it within an inch. You can have it within 4 inches and you would still be fine. As long as you have enough room from the top D-ring on the saddle, on front and rear, from there to the D-ring on the cinch. If you got 3-4 inches by the end of the day, you're good. All right? No problem at all. So that would be the one other measurement. Then the other one would be the bit. To measuring for the bit, because I have a 5 and I have 5.5 inches. So that would be the other two measurements. But other than that, cinches are the main thing. As far as cinch size, saddle measurements, no, I don't need them. The people who tell you that they need them, they don't know anything about a mule or a donkey. Okay, they're using somebody else's tree. They use a semi-quarter horse or 4/4 horse tree. And there you have a slim knowledge of a donkey or a mule.
And I will tell you the thing that was most helpful for me when Steve and I started this all these years ago was not being afraid to ask any type of question. And if there was anything that Steve said that I didn't understand, and I still try to do it now, I try to remember what it was like when I was learning, and I try to make sure to ask that question. Now, I would feel that there would be people on this program who all knew the answer. That's not true, but that's how I felt. And so I would ask that question knowing that, hey, maybe this answer is just for me, but I need to know it because I understood 90% of what he said, but he used a word that I don't know what that means. And if I don't ask right now, I'm not going to get the benefit of the whole answer. So I would say that to you, Rue, and to anybody out there who is wanting to learn, don't stop shy of asking whatever question you've got that comes up next. One answer is going to lead to another question, and that answer is going to lead to another question. And the second you stop asking questions is the second you sell yourself short and you sell your animal short because you are only getting part of the answer. And so I think that's probably been the biggest difference maker for me, Steve, is to not be ashamed or embarrassed or worried about what other people would think if I ask a question that maybe everybody in their world. Is there anything else you would add to that, Steve?
No, that's perfect there, Mule Guy. That's why you got the designation Mule Guy. You're no longer Dave Schrein. You are the Guru Mule Guy.
The Mule Guy. Linda is watching from Portal, Arizona, 63. My new mini donkey mother hates me because I had to give her 5 days of penicillin shots shortly after their arrival. The son is 3 months old. Will she ever forgive me? Steve.
Yes, she will. All right. Now, here, let me ask you something. When you gave the penicillin shots, did you give it in a different spot every day, or did you do the same spot? All right. Now, here's the next thing. My very good friend, Dr. Robert Miller, who just passed away here this last month, 16th, matter of fact, he would always say, Steve, I never give the shots myself. And he said, and this is a veterinarian. He says, I always let one of my veterinarian friends do it because then the mule could hate him. And I said, hey, Bob, are you giving the shot in the same place in the neck every day? He says, well, yeah. And I said, there's the problem. See, he's going jugular. I want to go intermuscular, okay, when you're doing your penicillins and this sort of thing. So you can go the neck, the hip, and this sort of thing. But here's the key part, okay? You see my hand? This is the neck over here. You are on the left-hand side of your mule. So that's the side you get on. You put your hand up there like this. This part goes against the neck, and you give your shots right in here. No place else on the neck, because there's less veins right here. So put your hand up there. Your saddle's right back here. All right? So you put your hand on the neck, give your shots right in there. Give one shot there. Go back and give one on the hip, on the left side. On the right side, give it on the hip. And on the right part of the neck, give it on the hip. And then that way you go 3 days later or 4 days later, you come right back to the neck again, you're done. So I don't know how many cc's you're doing now. Here's the other thing. When you're giving your shots, are you just using the needle and putting it in there, letting it wait to make sure it's not blood, and then giving your syringe after that? So there's a couple questions, okay? Are you giving it in the same place? And are you doing it with the whole syringe or just the needle itself?
So for your first question, she says she's doing different side of the neck.
Different side of the neck, okay? So it's doing right or left. I suggest you do it on the hip, okay? Kind of in the middle of the hip. And that way you can do the neck, the hip, the neck, and then you're back around the neck again the next day. But when you do it in the same place, they get bullet shy. So you want to do it in a different part of the body each time, okay?
It's Susan, Lillian's friend, and one of my mules is 47 and pretty thin. I've checked his teeth every 6 months, and he's had a few pulled out. I've been giving him Shorty Timothy pellets, a little bit of beet pulp, and a little Nutrena Safe Choice Senior feed. Any suggestions how I put a little bit of weight on him?
47 years old.
That's 47 and pretty thin.
Yeah, well, here it is, folks. Once they go over 20 years old, they start dropping off in weight. I wish it was the same for me. I keep gaining weight. Okay, but here's the deal, folks. I want to tell you that when it comes down to the older mules, once they go over 20, you got to really keep track of their teeth. Yes, you do. And you're feeding them right. But to have one that old, congratulations. That's really good. Are you going to be able to get weight on them? No. You know, you can. I have tried every kind of weight program it was. When my Tom and Katie and my wife's mule Stacy were getting up in age, man, I threw the feet at them. I tried everything you can imagine. Of course, I kept track of the teeth, and I kept track of the worming, and I watched their feet. I watched how I did it, how they exercised, but still they kept dropping in weight, and that's what they do when they get older.
Next question, we put a video out on, as a matter of fact, let me bring it up here. We put a video out on YouTube, you talking about the Arizona cinch, and we had somebody write in saying, wouldn't leather be stronger than a snap? And so I'm trying to find the video here. Here we go. Here's the video where you're talking about it, and let's go down here. Here you go. So would leather be stronger than the snaps that you're using there?
No, leather cracks, okay? And nylon does not. It's one of the reasons I use nylon. That snap is perfect. I've been using it for close to 30 years. It's a good quality snap. There's not much pressure on these cinches, okay? This cinch kind of sets in the middle of the belly, kind of, but back a little bit, back where the rear cinch is. So it's more centered in the center and works better as a pack cinch. Don't use it on a riding saddle. A riding saddle, it'll eventually get loose and your saddle will roll. On a riding saddle, the back cinch is the most important. But that snaps, they're great snaps. I've never had a problem all these years.
Elizabeth says, is the Mona Lisa bit recommended for both gaited and non-gaited mules? So Steve, what is the Mona Lisa bit? And then what would be the recommendation for gaited and non-gaited mules?
So going back and looking at the picture, when I say Mona Lisa, that's the rounded part in the middle. And if you think about in your mind what Mona Lisa looks like, the black hair and her just kind of sitting here like this, that bit, if you open that bit up again, that's called a Mona Lisa mouthpiece, that little rounded bit there. And here's the problem with these horses or mules, okay? They hold on to the bit and they kick them into the bit and they push them in the bit and hold on to them. You don't need to do that, folks. I have demonstrated with gaited animals time and time again that you don't have to hold on to the reins. Western style of riding is on a loose rein. And all you have to do is get them up into the gait that you want, hold on to the bit, and put them in a gait that you want, and slowly let down your hand, and then that'll release them, and then they will stay in that gait. You don't have to hold on to them and they're arched like this the whole time and prance it out really big. You don't have to do that, okay? These bits can be used on a gaited animal, and they can be used on one that is not. Now, here's the deal. On your mules, they get from their donkey a single foot, and where it makes a really nice walk, a lot smoother than a horse, phenomenally smoother. And so that single foot can also do really well with this mouthpiece as well. I've owned a lot of mules, Dave, that were gaited, Tennessee Walkers and Foxtrotters, and I've trained a lot of them. But most of all, in my clinics, I have demonstrated to people you don't need to hold on to the reins all the time. You don't. All you have to do is cue them, and they'll do proper.